Okay, this is activity FC12, and without using any dimensions, we're supposed to create this assembly made of three parts, namely let's call it a clamp, a bolt, and a nut. Okay, and we have to make sure that the assembly constraints are respected so that when we move things apart and update, they go back to this configuration. All right, first thing I'm going to do is to create a product file. Now, there it is. Immediately, I will save this thing. Incidentally, let me rename this properties. I'm going to call this thing FC12, FC12, so that in my tree, FC12 appears. Now, when I go to File Save Management, notice that uh, we say Save As. Now we have I have a folder here. Yeah, we can activity. I'll go put it in there, and you can because I renamed it there. Uh, that is the name of the file that's going to appear in that folder. But if you want to make any changes here, you can make to the stage. Okay. Let's insert our first part, which is going to be that clamp. So insert a new part in there. And I'm going to call this thing right-click properties. Here is the part name, clamp, and here is the instance name, clamp. Okay, let's make it. Double-click on this branched clamp so that you are in the part design. Right there, you're in part design. You can see that part design. Now, there are many ways of doing this thing. For example, let me do it like this. On that vertical plane, I will sketch. I'll sketch a rectangle, I'll sketch a profile like this. You'll see what I'm planning to do in a minute. So the clamp has some resemblance, at least in part of it, to this shape. And what I mean by that is this piece of it, okay? Good. And let me also draw a circle here. Exit and pad it. Pull it further. Okay, like that. And say okay. Now on that face, I will sketch a rectangle. I'm not going to bother making sure that it is, let me see now. Yeah, that's good. So look at this thing from the front. I'm going to make a rectangle like that. Exit. And guess what? I'm going to make a pocket all the way through. There we are. So I could have done this thing many different ways, but here's one way. So double click on the product, double click and click on the floppy, and it will save the product and the part that we just created. Then we're going to do the bolt. So insert a new part. I'll say no. And then I'm going to rename this thing to be the bolt. Properties, call this thing, here's a part name. And here is the instance name. Okay, let's make it. Double click on it. And there are many ways of doing this thing. One way would be this. I did it differently. I did this thing differently in the previous tutorial. I, for example, drew a circle here, padded to get the shank of the bolt, and then pad on it, and drew another curve, and padded it the other way to get the bolt head. I'm going to do that differently. So on that vertical plane, I will, or maybe on that, it doesn't matter. On that vertical plane, I will sketch. You'll see what I'm planning to do. Okay, good. Now, a couple of things you should know, and that is if I change this thing to wireframe, you get to see the whole. This is the axis. This is the. Let me see for a second. Yeah, that is the axis of the whole. Okay. So that helps me to draw my bolt. Please keep in mind that this is not ordinarily how I would do a problem like that, but I want to do different things. So first of all, uh, the uh, the bolt is going to look like this. We'll fix it in a minute. This is a bolt. Oops, what is the profile? Bolt head is going to be something like that. Okay, and then it's going to go through, and then there's the axis of revolution of that. Okay, so let's clean it up first of all. This point, control that. We want them to be coincident. Okay, good. And I want this line, control. Now, if I can take that line to be coincident, good. Exit, exit. There we are. Okay. If that rendering mode bothers you, you can just change it back to stop here. You can change it back to the solid with edges like that. And now I'm going to do a shaft about that axis. Okay. So shaft this profile about that axis and say okay. Now, if this seems to be too small for you as far as the diameter of the shaft, what you need to do is to go back to that sketch and, for example, make this thing give it the proper size. Okay. I mean, I don't know. This may be a little bit smaller than that, which means usually that's the way it is. But anyway, if you can make him perfectly matched, then you have to do some other work. Good, good. Now, as far as all the way to the top, click on the floppy. It saves. Oh, let me see what's happened here. All the way to the top. It's impossible to save protected documents already existing on the disk. Bolt.cat part. Use files. Okay, so that's fine. We obviously we got a problem. Save management. Okay, so that must have been this. Save as. Uh, oh, you know why? Because there was another bolt. There was another bolt, and all of them are going into that. All of them went into that same folder. This is something we've got to watch out on the exam and see what happened. I already had a bolt in there. And when I try to put this as another bolt, it's going to cause a problem. So I'll put bolt FC12. Things like that can happen, and we've got to be aware of that. Good, good. Excellent. So now we're going to go and make the insert the nut. Insert a new part in there. Call this thing the nut. Here's the part name. And here's the instance name. Let's make it. And all it is basically a cylinder with a hole. So on that plane, I will sketch. Okay, where do I project that circle? Project the circle. There's the project icon. Do it any way you want. On there's the project. And do the rest of it now. Here's the normal view. You draw another circle coincident with this. Concentric with that. Exit. Add it. Yeah, to get our nut. So 0.3. Okay, good. All right, all the way to the top. Let's see if I click on the floppy, it still comes out with the same message. Oh, it's good. Very good. Okay, so let's move these. Well, we are in assembly design right now. Constraints. So anchor something that's most uh, meaningful to anchor. Fix. I'll anchor the clamp, and I move these things apart so you can see what's going on. You can see this. This is rotation. These are translations. Translation Y. This one is translation in Z. Okay, good. So anyway, there we are. Okay, so let's put this bolt inside of that hole. So coincidence between this axis and that axis. When I say update, it just lines up. It doesn't go all the way in. If we want to bring this thing down, there are different ways of doing it. For example, you can say coincidence between this plane and that plane and update. Now it comes down, and now we're going to put the nut in there. So coincidence between this axis and that axis, and coincidence between this plane and that plane. I'll show you something about these arrows in a minute. Update. You see, that's because of those arrows are pointing in the same direction. So double click on that. Click on one of the arrows. It doesn't matter which one. Say OK, and update. It come out. There we go. Now, go all the way to the top. Click on the floppy. Now separate these things and do all kind of crazy things to it. Rotation, translation, and then update. They should go back to that configuration. So for example, there's the move toolbar, manipulate. For example, let's do rotate about Z, translate in Y, translate in X, and do the same thing to that fellow here. I mean, don't do with gigantic translations and rotation that I've done here. It may mess it up. It's not that it's wrong, it's just that if you go too far away, things may not go the way you want it. But this one, of course, doesn't matter. It's a simple problem. So don't miss any of these constraints, because on the final exam, if I give you an assembly, I'll ask you to impose constraints, and then I'm going to check it for everything that's missing, is not working. You're going to lose points. Okay, so please make sure that you pay attention to the constraints at the end. Okay, that takes care of this tutorial.